Hi there, I'm Sarah Cunnington and welcome to Drawn from the Word. Today I want to share a story from my childhood, and as you will eventually see, it has an application as a parable about the kindness of strangers. But first, I'll share this passage with you. It's from Hebrews 13, verses 1 to 2. Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. One wild and stormy night, we were driving through the bleak and empty hills of the Scottish borders on our way to our annual holiday with my mother's Aunt Kitty. It was becoming increasingly clear that we had no hope of reaching the campsite where my father had booked us a place for the night. It was late, and the rain was coming down in sheets, and we had no idea where we were. Suddenly, as we turned a corner and emerged from some woods, we saw a solitary light off to the left in the otherwise unrelieved blackness. I remember the cries of relief, and when we came to a track that seemed to lead to that light, we turned off the road and followed it. The car bumped slowly along a narrow, unmade track that gradually rose up a low hill. Then, to our great relief, we turned into the cobbled yard of the small stone farmhouse. We were welcomed with such kindness. While the farmer helped our parents pitch our tent in the yard, my brother, my sister, and I were given hot milk and biscuits by the farmer's wife. Then we all crept into the tent, bedding down in our sleeping bags on air-filled mattresses that didn't quite protect us from the stony ground beneath. I still remember the smell of the herbs crushed by the ground sheet on which we lay. In the morning, we woke to find the storm was over, leaving a rain-washed, dull grey sky, but it hadn't washed away the smell of fresh cow manure, which still hung in the damp air. As we scrambled out of the tent, we discovered that we were surrounded on three sides by low farm buildings, filled with ancient machinery and great big bales of hay and straw. Standing out in the yard was a rusty turnip crusher. I seem to remember that we tried to turn the handles and get it working, but without much success. As we continued our exploration, we saw a low ridge of barren hills to the south, and perched on one of them was a tall, round stone tower. We learnt that this had been a refuge for the farmers' ancestors during the 400 years of border skirmishes between the English and the Scots. It would hold not only the farmer's family, but as many of their cattle as they could squeeze into the space, protecting them from the marauding soldiers who crossed and recrossed the border country of the River Tweed, raping, pillaging, and slaughtering as they went. Despite this bitter history and our very English accents, this delightful Scottish couple could not have been more welcoming. We were certainly not angels, but we were treated as such. In fact, such was our welcome that we returned to visit these dear folk every year until my great-aunt died. It became one of the highlights of our yearly trip. It was a real blessing. I can think of many other occasions when I've been blessed by the kindness of strangers, and so I try to put the same principle into practice. Sometimes a passing friend or acquaintance has called in around mealtime and we've invited them to join us. Once it was a weary cyclist pausing for breath after the long haul up the hill on which we live. He ended up eating with us and staying the night. Often I find myself refilling people's water bottles from our kitchen tap because the water that comes out of the pipe above the trough outside our gate is often polluted by runoff from the fields. As far as I know, I've not entertained angels, but there's no doubt we have been blessed by these encounters. I'm sure that you can testify to similar experiences. Abraham received angels when he was camped near the great trees of Mamre, but not just angels. He received the Lord himself. Traditionally, observant Jews have always had an extra cup of wine at the Passover Seder, ready for when Elijah returns. We Christians do not know when the Lord himself will return, but as we wait for that day, let us not forget to keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Neither let us forget to show hospitality to strangers. You will be blessed as you bless them. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll join me again next week. In the meantime, be blessed. Bye-bye for now.